Your Houston Morning News with Matt Patrick continues.
KTRH News Time is 6:15. We're glad you're joining us. Also joining us this morning is Torie Clarke, former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs under Don Rumsfeld. Torie, welcome back to Houston's Morning News. Great to have you with us. Happy New Year.
You too. Great to be with you guys again.
All right, listen, Obama makes this historical speech in front of at the Pentagon yesterday, cuts the military, or says he's going to be cutting the military budget over the next few years by some over $450 billion, mostly from the Army and the Marines. We are also hearing that Iran is the greatest destabilizing element in global security. So my question to you, Torie, is what is this president thinking by doing this and announcing it now?
It's a great question. I had two immediate reactions to it. One was the optics of it. From what I've heard, this is the first time he has ever been to the Pentagon to do a news conference of any kind. He's had some small visits over there, and it seems almost as though he's rubbing it in their faces, if you will. So I thought the optics were very strange. And the second piece of it is timing is everything. To your point about Iran, but let's not just stop at Iran. Iran is as provocative right now in Afghanistan as they've ever been. We've got people going into Iraq and making all sorts of mischief in the vacuum that's been left with the U.S. forces pulling out. And you have great uncertainty throughout the Middle East in the wake of the Arab Spring. So at that exact moment, we're sending a very strong signal around the world, hey, we're pulling back. And I just don't think that's the right message to be sending right now.
I agree. And we haven't talked about North Korea. We haven't talked about China.
It's a long list.
It is a tremendously long list. And it seems, I think that you and I would both agree that there is some cuts that should be made in the defense budget.
Absolutely.
And maybe you and I agree on the fact that we should maybe focus more of our attention on Air Force and naval defense. I get all that, but I guess I'm boggled. My mind is boggled by the fact that he's announcing this publicly and then doing it at this particular time. Of course, he is running for re-election. I guess that may have something to do with it.
Always a factor. Democrats and Republicans, always a factor. But to your point about why he's doing it and how he's doing it, and the way I think you ought to approach these sorts of things is to say, okay, what's the world in which we find ourselves? What are the challenges? What are the threats? And then what are our national security goals in the face of those challenges and threats? What do we want to accomplish? And then based on that mission, you develop the strategy and the resources and the tactics. And that drives your budget. What I see going on here is concerns about the budget and concerns about money and a political need to show I'm cutting back are what's driving our strategy and our tactics and resources, and that's completely backwards.
Torie, if you would hang on, Chris Begala will be joining us.
Sure.
He's a local political expert, media expert from Begala McGrath, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how these cuts will affect us here at home in Texas, especially with the largest military base in the world right up the street from us.
More Houston Morning News with Matt Patrick now.
KTRH News Time is 6:22. Joining us this morning, our political insider, media expert, Chris Begala from BegalaMcGrath.com. Chris, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good morning. Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year to you, my friend. Torie Clarke is also on with us as well. She was talking with me in the earlier segment. I want to get you both together. Chris, Torie and I were talking about the fact that this cut in the military budget, this announcement comes at a horrible time considering all that is going on. Would you talk about it from the aspect of what it means for Texas? What does it mean for the state of Texas, since we have the largest military installation anywhere in Fort Hood right here up the street?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Where are the cuts? Always the devil's in the detail, and President Obama is not big on detail, as we know. So the chances is that it will hit Texas. We need to talk to Congressman Culberson, who sits on the House Armed Service Committee, and get to the details in the next few weeks. But yes, it will probably hurt Texas. It's going to hurt our economy. And what will it do around the world, and how we are able to defend ourselves? This has gone on for a long time. Let's be fair to President Obama. Every president has got tremendous challenges when you talk about the military and the international threats that are around. So when you talk about cutting, are there real cuts to be made in the military budget? Well, I would certainly assume so. So to be fair to him, we don't know exactly where they're going to be, but the rhetoric coming out of an individual who will get his $1.2 trillion increase in the budget, I mean, in the deficit, you're talking about somebody who has spent more money than any human being in the history of the world, and now when he talks about the military, he wants to talk about we need to be fiscally responsible. It is just jaw-dropping.
And Torie, let me ask you, there's no cut in entitlement programs. He's cutting the military, but there's no discussion of cutting what really needs to be looked at, and that's entitlements.
I think you put your finger on the most important thing, and it's amazing how often we all forget to talk about that. I say all the time, Democrats or Republicans, everyone should scream fraud if they talk about cutting budgets without talking about the entitlements, because we all know you're just skimming across the surface if you don't talk about Social Security, Medicare, etc. You're absolutely right.
All right. We've got two of the best with us this morning. Torie Clarke, of course, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs under Don Rumsfeld, and Chris Begala McGrath, our political insider, media expert. I want to thank you both for taking the time early this morning. We'll certainly be watching this and have you both back on as we move forward. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.